The graph I'm looking at here and that you're seeing is the change in the number of births from 2022 to 2023. And if you start with the Philippines, who are in net positive, and then if you look down the whole way to the bottom, you see Poland with minus 10.5%. And above that, then you have Ireland with minus 10.3%. So in 1 year, you're after seeing the amount of Irish people. That's births in Ireland now. So how many of them are actually Irish is a different question, okay? But on the whole in Ireland, in the space of 1 year, births are down by a little over 10%, okay? So we're having less babies. And that will lead us into a question by Ben Scallon of Grit to Pascal Donoghue about demographics. So keep what I just said in mind, that in Ireland on the whole, between the year 2022 and 2023, there was 10% less babies born in Ireland.
Very briefly, you mentioned the challenge of demographics earlier, and I'm wondering, does the government intend with the upcoming budget to implement any policies to try and encourage people to have bigger families, which is a kind of an economic strategy we've seen many other European countries adopt to try and address the demographics issue long term?
So, solid question. Really, really solid question. Because I believe Hungary have done it. I believe Denmark might have done it as well. But as Ben said, there's other countries that are doing it. And it's a perfectly logical, perfectly reasonable, and nearly an expected thing to do. So if the natives of a land are falling beyond replacement fertility rate, would you not expect to see some sort of onus on the government or some sort of encouragement societally to replenish that, to replenish the population? Let us see what Pascal has to say for himself.
One of the purposes of the National Childcare Scheme, one of the purposes of the child benefit system that we have in place is to support parents with their families and with the cost of bringing those families up. It hasn't been raised with me so far that we need to bring in additional measures to support the growth of families. I'm not sure they're as needed in Ireland as they are in other countries.
Okay. So Pascal doesn't believe that, and there's a need for any incentive to encourage Irish people to have more children or to enable them to be able to financially support, given the current state of things, to financially support having a larger family. So the number 2.1 is often thrown around as the total fertility rate, right? So in order for a population to essentially replace itself, because you have kids to replace you, it's not their purpose, but that's what they end up doing, is they replace you. You die, they survive. Your people live on, right? That number needs to be 2.1 per female on average. So 2.1, because if a couple has 2 kids, those 2 kids are technically replacing their parents. But on average, many people die, or they just don't have kids. Many people die before they get to have kids. So the 2.1 on average is seen as the replacement figure. So in order for a race, an ethnic group, whatever you want to call it, to survive, the number of children born per female needs to be on average at least 2.1. In Ireland, and this is from the World Bank, so you can be sure their numbers are probably, if their business is obviously people, right? So you can be sure their numbers are pretty legit or legit enough. But either way, in Ireland, the current fertility rate is 1.72 per woman. In 2021, that's what it was. And the other graph I showed a minute or two ago shows that between the years 2022 and 2023, that number fell by another 10%. So the fertility rate on average in Ireland is even lower than what you're looking at here. But Pascal doesn't believe that it's an issue in Ireland. He doesn't believe that encouraging people or enabling people in whatever way to have and support a larger family, he doesn't believe that that's an issue. Why?
while overall we are seeing changes with regard to fertility levels, and we're seeing changes with regard to family formation levels here within Ireland, we still have a population that is growing in our country, which is very different to other countries who are bringing in these measures.
We are looking at a population, or we are a country whose population is continuing to grow. But what he's not mentioning there is the demographics, or the breakdown in the demographics of that growing population. So here, in another article by Gript, we see that from Matt Tracy, the CSO estimate of 112,000 non-Irish immigrants between April 2022 and April 2023 was less than half the number of PPS numbers issued to persons from overseas. So what this article is claiming is that they're underestimating the amount of immigrants coming in, or not even underestimating. What they're saying, or what they're registering, the information they're giving out, is about half as many of the PPS numbers that have been issued to foreign people. So between 2022 and 2023, when Irish people are having 10% less children, you're looking at about 250,000 new PPS numbers handed out to foreign people. So yes, Pascal is correct. The population in Ireland is continuing to grow, but it's not of native peoples, because the native people are not replacing themselves, because for whatever reason, you can look at nearly all measures and all aspects of society are there to discourage white people from having children and replacing themselves. So in 100 years, the numbers of white people, the numbers of Irish people in Ireland will be a fraction of what it is now. And Pascal doesn't see this as an issue. Number one, either he's blind to this and he doesn't recognize that peoples are different. He doesn't recognize there's such thing as Irish people. Or number two, because he's paid not to. What's the quote? It's hard to convince somebody that what they believe is untrue when their job is to believe that it is true. I butchered that, but you get my point. So Pascal sees no issue with this. Irish people are not replacing themselves. Foreigners are coming here and their fertility rate is much higher than the Irish people's. So generationally, you're going to see a bigger chasm grow and separate out between the numbers of Irish people who will be whittled down and the numbers of foreigners who will continue to grow exponentially. Ultimately, Ireland will become a landmass that is filled with Africans and Middle Eastern people, and Irish people will go off and live in the woods again because they'll be hunted, just like South Africa. That's where we're going. Pascal sees no issue with this because he's either pig ignorant or he's a sociopathic person who has no connection with himself, his ancestors, or his own people, or because he's paid to not see it. Because I would imagine he's a highly compromised individual, and listening to him and looking at him, I would suggest that there are some things that are held over this man that he does not want released, and he's just doing what he's told now.